to start, and thank you for being here for 1 o'clock. Thank you. So, I normally do a little preamble, but as there's no members of the public here today, I won't do that today. So we'll go straight into the agenda with apologies for absence. Lee?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Today we've received apologies from absence from Councillor Alan Bradford, Councillor Brian Bolt, Councillor Hilary Bruce, and Councillor Pauline Ham, with Councillor Landsted as substitute for Brian Bolt.
Thank you.
Could
And
I have send apologies from
Yeah, and possible apologies from Alistair Hendry as well.
okay. So next is minutes from the previous meeting. Are they approved as a correct record? If I'm, so I've got a proposer, Matt, Councillor Martin, and seconder, Councillor Slocum. All in favour, please show. That's unanimous, thank you. And then on to declarations of interest. Leslie, would you like to take us to a potted version as we?
Yes, that's okay. I think I will start with the question, why is there a need to disclose interests? Interests are an integral part of the standards regime. They go to the heart of the Nolan principles, which I'm sure you are all familiar with. It's about integrity and about making decisions for the right reasons. Planning is often a particularly emotive matter, and it's important that processes are not only carried out fairly, but appear to an unbiased observer to be so. This minimises the risk of challenge to the council, but also to individual members from a conduct point of view. We have the members' code of conduct, which tells us about disposable pecuniary interests, where a member has a disposable pecuniary interest, they have not received dispensation from the monitoring officer, they must not participate in the discussion nor vote on the issue, and must leave the room during the discussion of that item of business. There are other registerable interests which are set out. A member must disclose the interest. They may speak on the matter only if members of the public are also allowed to speak, but otherwise they must not take part in any discussion or vote and must not remain in the room unless they have been granted a dispensation from the monitoring officer. And then there are non-registerable interests, which I'm sure some of you will recall they were previously known as personal interests. And these are described as an item of business where a decision in relation to it might reasonably be regarded as affecting the well-being or financial position of the member, a member of the member's family, or person with whom they have a close association, more than any other council taxpayers, ratepayers, or inhabitants of the authority's area. Members must disclose a non-registerable interest at any meeting of the council, committee or subcommittee where they consider the interest to be relevant to an item of business being considered at the meeting. In addition to interest, members need to be aware of predetermination and bias. And again, these matters are all set out in the members' code of conduct, which you will have access to. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Leslie. Now on to public question time. There are no members of the public registered. Oh, sorry, forgot the actual deck. Councillor Martin and Councillor Filmer.
Thank you, Chair. The one item on there today, item 5, I have been involved in conversations regarding this application previously, but I come to the meeting today with an open mind. Thank you.
Councillor Filmer.
Just normal declaration of that range forward.
Councillor Slocum.
Bridgewater Town Council, but non-planning. It's not Bridgewater, I know today, but I still like to be super clear.
Councillor Fludridge.
Trading sport.
You. And now we will go on to public question time. Nobody is registered to speak this afternoon. So that takes us straight on to a planning application to consider a variation of condition 5 to land of north of Lodepool Overy. Louise, would you like to take us through the application, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is reference number 38/24/00010, and it's for a variation of condition 25 on an earlier planning permission, which is in essence to amend the wording of condition 25. The main considerations in this case are the principle of development, which has been established by the earlier grant of planning permission for this development, which was undertaken by this committee last year. And the principle of the development of a market and self-built dwellings at this site was considered acceptable. There have been no changes to any of the planning policy positions or material considerations since the grant of that permission, which remains extant. The considerations under a Section 73 application, which is Section 73 of the Town and Country Planning Act, are to assess the variation put forward in front of members. It's not to revisit any of the other aspects of the application, hence why the report in front of you just covers the aspects for the changes and the proposed amendments to the condition, and sets alongside in an appendix the original officer report that came to committee. Now, the justification for the variation of the condition has been made in this case, and I'll go on to that in slightly later on. And the conditions are set out within the officer report, including the amended condition. So O3 Parish Council had objected to this application. Their very strong opinion is they did not support the proposal. It's noted that the original proposal within O3, which is a T4 settlement described in the Sedgemoor local plan, and they felt that the developer had not proved they had made any effort to promote the self-build potential to villagers, which was an important part of the application. The application was then referred to the chair and vice chair of committee and discussed, and considering both the parish council objections and the very interesting and unique situation of this case, felt it was in the interests to report this to committee for determination. This is the site itself in O3, just along the A372 there, highlighted with the star and the aerial photograph on the right-hand side. And this is the proposed site plan layout. This is illustrative only, but this was what was in front of members at the last committee. And proposed access arrangements, again, these are detailed access drawings that were approved under the previous planning permission. And the swept path analysis, which is the refuse vehicle turning, entering and exiting the site. And just a couple of photographs of the site. You can see just along here, that's just the frontage of the Peppards Close houses, the affordable housing scheme across on the other side of the A372. And then within the site, the existing hard standing yard. So the proposal is here under policy D9, which does support small scale self-build in identified rural settlements. And members will be aware from very recent committees, we've had a fair few self-build proposals coming forward. And we also have the self-build and custom build homes, SPD, in the north area, which does emphasise on focusing local housing need for smaller settlements and requires a local connection for self-build proposals. The North Planning Committee resolution in August of 2024 followed a verbal update at the meeting by officers to include a self-build condition. This was drafted following the meeting, and it was agreed with officers in error that the local connection tailpiece of the condition could be removed. However, the decision notice was issued with the following wording, which as underlined there, you can see it states with an appropriate local connection to the parish of O3. Now, this was in fact correct because it was fully in accordance with our guidance and our policies as just out for you. Now, once a planning decision has been issued, it is a legal document. The local planning authority does not have any statutory powers to withdraw and reissue a decision notice for whatever reason that may be. And that's been held by the courts and judgments that across the country that have been received. So the options in this case were for the agent to either appeal the condition or to apply for a Section 73 application to vary the condition, to amend the wording. And officers advised through various negotiations and discussions that to provide support and to actually allow the removal of the local connection wording in a positive fashion, there would need to be appropriate evidence submitted to accompany the application. So, as I've mentioned, only the changes proposed for the variation of the condition wording are for consideration here today in this actual application. The principle has already been established. The applicants have supported their proposal with a marketing plan, and it does demonstrate that the plots and the site have been marketed for nearly 12 months. And there's been little interest in the site as a whole or for individual plots. Somerset Council does have a wider objective to support self-build schemes, and currently the known supply is insufficient to meet the demand in full. In these application-specific circumstances, it is accepted that the local connection requirement can be removed from condition 25 and that the plots can be marketed to a wider pool of potential self-builders. Now, what that means is the local interest from O3 is not prevented in that case. It just opens the whole pool to a much wider demand and circle. The proposed wording of the varied condition is as follows. So the condition stands without that tail piece. So the 5 of the 7 dwellings hereby permitted shall be planned, built and first occupied in accordance with the definition of self-build and custom house building as defined in the Self-Build and Custom House Building Act, as amended, and the dwellings hereby permitted shall be first occupied as the sole or main residence of a person on the council's self-build register. Now, members, you may be thinking, we've now changed our approach in the North area and across the whole of the Somerset teams in securing self-build. We are now seeking a Section 106 unilateral undertaking that's being drafted up as we speak to secure self-build schemes. However, in this case, as there is an extant planning permission, in essence, they can proceed with their permission they already have with only a condition controlling the self-build element. It's not considered reasonable to change the approach in dealing with this variation of condition to include such a requirement for a 106 agreement. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Louise. Members, any comments, questions? Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Marshal my thoughts for a second. So this doesn't change anything with regard to the 8 self-build properties, and they would still go through as self-build properties with the same requirements that every self-build property has. This doesn't actually change anything with the properties themselves, does it?
Yeah, just to clarify, it's via 5 self-build on this site and 2 open market dwellings, but no, there's no change to the proposal for the self-build elements. It's just removing that local connection element on the end of the condition.
5 self-build, 2 open market.
Yeah.
It's not 8 anymore then, it's gone down to 7.
It was 7 at committee when it was determined last year.
I apologise.
It was amended from the very original.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, good. Thank you, thank you.
Councillor Philpott.
I'm struggling with this one slightly. I agree with everything in the report, apart from the recommendation. My slight struggle is whenever we have these self-build developments in our rural areas, we have to look and check that there is people on the register that have signed up to say that they need local housing in that particular area, because these are not general areas for development. They are ones to meet a specific local need. If we go down the route that we appear to be being sent, which from what you've said, I think the recommendation that came from this meeting last time was that condition should have been on there, but there had been a negotiation after the committee between officers and the applicant that took something out of the resolution that had been passed by this committee, which in itself is a little dangerous because okay, I'll let you come back.
Yeah, no, that's not the case. I'll correct you there, Councillor Filmer. The committee fully accepted the verbal recommendation to add a self-build condition. The wording of that condition was the point of debate and negotiation. So we weren't retracting on anything that the councillors had agreed on.
I think where we as members might not have understood that is that always in the past, because it's an exception site, there would be a local need. So for that local need not to be in the condition would be something we wouldn't have expected. So that slightly caused me a struggle. It feels like there's a danger here that we potentially are setting ourselves up to allow speculative development in the rural areas. Because if I was any half decent agent, I'd be coming back saying, well, it worked in Oldbury, so what about for us? And I know we don't have any precedent, but as we heard in our discussions this morning in training, we do need to take into account decisions that have been made in the past. So potentially it could come back and cause us a problem. So I'm struggling to see how we go ahead with this, bearing in mind our supplementary planning policy that allows this. If, as I say, it's defined around a local need, and this totally changes that. So had the applicant gone to appeal, I wouldn't have had a problem with that. Or even if he'd come in with a resubmission and officers had recommended refusal of that, I could have understood that again. But now for us to accept that, I feel is setting a dangerous situation. And as I say, I think if I was in O3, I would be a little bit miffed, because those people are on the local waiting list. Have these people come up with houses that actually aren't suitable for the local people, in which case that is in itself a danger, because you would have expected them to have had to have met the local need, not come up with something that's totally inappropriate. So as I say, I'm struggling to support the recommendation at the moment.
Can I come back on that point? Thank you, Chair. I completely accept the concern there, Councillor Filmer, and we had discussed this with our planning policy team, and again, completely accepting that there is a concern that by removing this element and the local connection of this condition, it might then encourage other similar or additional schemes to come forward within the smaller settlements themselves, which would obviously then undermine the local plan sort of spatial strategy for development. There may be a chance that that might happen, but any new consent that came in today, tomorrow, would still need to demonstrate that local demand. And as you say, we would be checking our register for local demand from persons with an appropriate local connection. And as in this case, a local connection condition would be applied to those schemes within Tier 3 and Tier 4 settlements, which are your most rural settlements. Now, they could then apply to vary or remove, or they may come in up front with supporting evidence to say that there's not interest. And we would have to, sorry to use the normal phrase, but we would have to take that into consideration on its own merits. And in this case, as I say, it is exceptional to this site, and hence one of the reasons why it's here before you today is because of that sort of interesting dynamic there. And it is an unusual situation. But as I say, we have checked with our planning policy team and they are supporting this recommendation.
Did you want to come over? Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Another point of clarity, if I could, please. This sort of nebulous term of local need, is that supported by any sort of housing needs assessment that's been taking place over the last 5 years?
I'm afraid I can't answer about the local housing needs assessment. That's very much a matter for sort of the policy evidence collecting. However, we do check the register on every new self-build application. We ask our policy colleagues to check the availability and the names and those listed locally with a local connection, sorry, about the self-build and custom build register.
Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Filmer beat me to the post, and thank goodness, because he made it a lot clearer than what I would have said it. But I'm exactly with Councillor Filmer on this. Are we actually saying this is our fault? Are we saying that we got the wording wrong? Or are we saying the policy's wrong? I don't like the idea of changing something that has gone through. I think this does open the floodgates. I'm a little bit worried about that. I feel the same anxiety about this one. And I know it sounds simple, but in actual fact, why is it that the local need is very, very important? And I don't understand why that's not with the recommendation.
As I think I set out in the presentation there, we have the marketing evidence and the supporting statement and information before us to show that they have tried to market, and there has been very little interest in the site. This is before you, as I explained to Councillor Filmer, the actual wording of that condition wasn't before committee this time last year. That was drafted by officers after the actual meeting itself. And quite rightly so, the local connection was put into that condition. Whereas the agents who, unfortunately, they're not here today to sort of have their 2-3 minutes of speaking time. But they were not happy with that local connection, and they wanted a wider sort of field and pool of interest.
No, so if they weren't happy with it, then I think they should do a resubmission. Surely for audit purposes, that this is, we're tidying this up really, and that's not right. I don't think that's correct.
The only appropriate routes for them to sort out their disagreement with that would be through an appeal, as I referred to in the presentation there, or through an application to vary the condition. This is a valid route for them to undertake to resolve their disagreement, basically. If this isn't accepted here today, they can then take up to appeal this decision.
But sorry, just for clarification, sorry, Madam, but could they not resubmit an application? Could they not? They get choice, don't they get free? So why
No, there's no free go.
There's no free go.
They could do, but a section 73 is an application to vary the condition. It is a new planning permission.
So they could vary it then, they could put in an application to
That's
vary.
what this application is before you
But
today.
it still seems it's a bit, I don't know. Okay.
Can you take us back to the approval that we agreed when it came before us before, please, just for Clement?
So as to reiterate for you, Chair, this was the wording of the condition that was issued on the decision notice for the original planning application. So it has that tail piece as I've described it, with an appropriate local connection to the parish of Overy.
So we are Councillor Grimes and then Councillor John.
Thank you, Chair. Totally agree with my colleagues about this. I don't want to labour the point to go on any further, but I just feel that this is a step too far. I think we should stick with what it was originally. Otherwise, like has been said, it could open the floodgates. That's my view. Thank you.
Councillor Filmer.
Just also a slight clarification as well. In terms of the wording that we've got there in that condition that went through last time, I presume that is the standard wording that we've used on other similar exception sites, that we haven't done anything odd in what we did there. That is what you would have expected to have been done.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, for tier 3 and tier 4 settlements, we have this tail piece for the local connection.
As I say, for me, the situation would be if they have justified an exceptional site to meet local need, if what they're proposing isn't meeting local need, they should be adjusting what they're doing to meet that local need, not coming to us saying, let's have anyone have it. And then we'll have another application in Overy for another site to meet local need because this one's not meeting the local need. So it really doesn't feel comfortable.
Chair, can I just come back on that last point? There is evidence that they've put forward, and obviously it's your decision as the committee to say that there is not that local demand. So I don't think it's right to say that if this is changed, there'll be another application to meet their need, because they're basically saying they've done the marketing. There isn't the identified local need. That's the whole point of the application.
I think that the thing with as well, in terms of this being justified the first time, there would have been names on the self-build housing list to have justified this. If those people can't get these properties, then somebody else could come back on another piece of land saying, we'll come up with some housing that does meet the local needs. So you end up with double the amount of housing being done and inviting people. Overy is not a settlement that is destined to take growth in for its own right. It's there to have growth to meet its own needs. And if we're allowing growth that doesn't meet its needs, I think that is driving a coach and horses through our policy. So I would have said this doesn't meet the exception to be granted.
Do we understand why there is this disconnect between the original understanding that there was a local need, hence this being approved, and now there seemingly is not a local need.
Yeah.
What has happened in the meantime? Do we know?
The marketing report submitted with this application shows that they have marketed the site for what's now a sort of just over a 12-month period, and there has been no interest. Now that is a slightly different matter to the list of people that we would have on our register that have registered an interest. That doesn't necessarily then equate to those people actually then building out. It's any of us could today put our name down and say we want to be included on that register.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you again. We seem to be stuck in a whirlpool with this because, I mean, all the comments we've heard so far seem to reflect exactly what the parish council have come to us with their comment, which I won't read out now, but it's noted page 21 in our documentation. I've got the listing for the property here, which is a residential development site with outline planning consent through TA7. It's listed at £800,000. Is that what they're saying? Is that what they're saying is the marketing document?
It's the whole site. Yes, the whole site has been marketed for that.
And they're saying that there's been no.
Yes, with an online advertising. It's been on web pages, etc. And there was one inquiry and one developer expressed an initial interest, but no further interest in the entire site.
I appreciate exactly what you're saying, and you're quite right with the rules as they go. But it seems I can't help thinking that I don't want to cast aspersions on anybody that is, looking to develop this site. But what the public, well, it's really difficult, isn't it? What the public see as marketing for properties is a house. What's being marketed here is a development opportunity for the best part of £1 million. That's why nobody's bought it, because nobody can afford £800,000. And they say, well, nobody's bought it, so we can now go on and sell it and change the documentation to reflect what we really want. I can't help thinking that there's been a bit of machination here. Nothing illegal and nothing untoward, really, but it's been a bit of ducking and diving, or it's worked out that way. Because yes, it has been marketed. It's been marketed for £800,000. I couldn't afford that. Not now, maybe 10 years ago, but it's ridiculous. Well, it's ridiculous. It's just different. Does this make any sense to anybody?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. I thought I was lost in it a bit. So, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Slocum.
I think it's quite clear here today that we are a majority of us, I think, are feeling a little bit concerned about the change. I mean, if you look at on the 22nd of the 9th, if you look at from 03 Parish Council, what they've said, it's quite clear. There is no difference to this, and I could not support this. And I'm saying that out now. I could not support this, and I apologise if that offends. I don't mean to the work that's been done, but if this is not sitting comfortable for me.
Well, that's exactly why it's before the committee, because it is
Thank you.
an unusual set of circumstances that need full consideration. Do officers wish to come back with any further comments, and then I'll ask members for any recommendation.
I think we have.
Councillor Martin, yeah.
Can I ask my colleagues? I mean, what? Oh, Bob's now got a comment which is more useful than what I'm going to say. But I mean, I'm like Jill, Councillor Slocum. This doesn't sit well with me. Quite aside from the fact that it is in my patch, it's in my division. As I've mentioned to our learned friend earlier, I do come here with an open mind. But listening to both sides of this now, I'm not entirely happy with the situation. So I wonder what would make us more happy with the situation as a committee. And we can't obviously discuss it in closed session, but maybe I'll pass across to Councillor Filmer to enlighten us a bit.
I'm not trying to be enlightening, but I mean, I would certainly be leaning towards a refusal of this as it stands at the moment. The recommendation says that the change of wording is acceptable. I think we can say that the change of wording is not acceptable. In terms of the marketing that's being carried out, I think the Vice Chairman has been spot on in the sense that they've marketed this as a whole site. On other sites that we've seen, developers who wanted to bring forward local accommodation have marketed individual plots that the people, it's of a scale that people can actually do. Now, and then get those people involved. I know this is outlined and as you've got reserve matters coming forward, but we've seen that done elsewhere in the former Sedgemoor area where developers have worked with the community to bring people together to do it rather than just say, oh, here's a plot, but you can give us £800,000. And those individuals are never going to be able to do that. So I think that sets a, as I say, if we're accepting that as the marketing of the whole site, I don't think that marketing is acceptable in terms of allowing people to do self-builds.
Thank you, Councillor Filmer.
Chair, just very quickly, yeah, I'm grateful to Councillor Filmer actually for making that point. I was going to make the point it would be very difficult to market it as individual plots because obviously you've only got an outline for the 7 dwellings, the 5 self-built and the 2 open market dwellings. So it's difficult to see how they could have been marketed as individual plots. But I think perhaps what you're then taking from that is perhaps they should have gone through the exercise of the reserve matters and then marketed individual plots to see if there was that interest from people with a local commitment. And on that basis, without wanting to sort of, I don't know if you're ready for us to say anything, but without wishing to preempt what members may decide, I think what you're saying is that 2 things. One is if this was a new application that was coming before you, you would be wanting to impose the local connection requirement. Okay, that's not what's before us. So, but that's, you know, just to be clear. And secondly, that whilst you're cognizant of the marketing that has been undertaken, albeit as an outline for 800,000 lower, you're yet to be convinced, or you're not convinced at this stage, which is all you can be, yeah, that the marketing is sufficient evidence to demonstrate that there is no there would be no local demand for individual plots. And on that basis, you don't believe it's being demonstrated that because the original application was granted on the basis of it being on the basis of our policy, you're not convinced that at this stage there's sufficient evidence to demonstrate that a non-policy compliant scheme should be accepted. I mean, Louise will put it in much better planning terms than me. I think that's what I'm hearing. Equally, there hasn't been someone who's forwarded or seconded, proposed or seconded that. Thank you. Proposed or seconded that. So I'm just saying that as just hearing what you're saying.
I would like to second Fox for the. I'm happy to propose. I would second.
But Councillor Filmer hasn't actually made a proposal yet.
Madam Chair, can I make that proposal?
Yes, please.
Ms. Riddle would clarify the wording.
Thank you. Do members, well, I think we all heard, I've made notes, it's about not being content at this stage. There's no local demand for those plots. And because the original application was policy compliant, we are not content with this being a non-policy compliant scheme.
Can we request that the final wording, because this is likely to go to appeal, or potentially go to appeal, can we ask that members give delegated authority to yourself as the chair in consultation with us on behalf of Alison Long Cooper for the final wording? But it would be effectively around the basis that it's not being demonstrated that there is no local connection and it would not be policy compliant without that. Yeah, I mean something around those lines. Did you want to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You happy with
Happy
that?
with that, as long as you're happy
Councillor
with
Filmer
it. Is it
and
just yourself or you and the vice chair? I don't know, whichever.
I'm
you're comfortable with.
both of us,
Yes.
with the officers, you'll be.
Exactly right,
I
yes.
think chair, it's normally chair and or vice chair, just in case you're on holiday or
Okay,
something.
okay,
Yeah, we
yeah.
normally word it like that. But if members do vote with the proposal and are happy to delegate, we'll make sure it mentions both chair and or vice chair.
Councillor Sanko.
I just wanted to say for councillor Martin's protection, I think it would be better to have you and the officers. I know you are the vice chair, but I think for your protection, because this is in your ward, I would just suggest, may I, that you don't get into the minutiae of wording. I would stay out of it.
That's wise words. Thank you. I agree with that. Thank you.
Okay, so we have, thank you, everybody. We have a proposal and seconder to not grant permission for this application for all the reasons stated. All those in favour of not granting permission, please show. That is 1, 2, 6. Okay, so that's 6 in favour of that proposal. Any against? None against, any abstentions? And we have 2 abstentions. Thank you very much, members. That was a good debate. Thank you. So that takes us on to the final item on the agenda, which is appeals. Zach, would you like to take us through a summary of the appeals, please?
I will, but it'll be very quick, as we have no appeal decisions to share with you. One has come through, but it only came through after the deadline, so it can wait till next meeting. So we've just got applications for the agenda item 6. So we've got a certificate of lawfulness for existing residential use of 2 semi-detached properties distinct from the existing property. That's at Bath Road in Ashcott. That was a delegated decision. And we've got an appeal, a householder appeal relating to 26 Rookery Close in Axbridge, which was for a 2-storey rear extension. I don't really have anything to say on either of them, to be honest. I think we'll wait for the decisions and then we'll report them back to members, unless you particularly wanted to inquire and take it offline.
Follow-ups for those, Zach? So that's the end of the business. So that concludes the business for this afternoon. So thank you, members. Thank you, everyone. I wish you all a very happy Christmas. Good 2026. Thank you.
Thank you.
Otherwise,